Jazz in the Gardens?
Well, this is the 8th annual Jazz in the Gardens, and this year we have an extraordinary lineup. You know, we have Earth, Wind, and Fire, which just in and of itself, that's all you have to say really is Earth, Wind, and Fire, the elements. I mean, they're extraordinary. We have Neo, we have New Edition, we have Babyface, we have Fantasia, we have Monica, we have Mary Mary. Yeah, it's when you, this is our biggest Jazz in the Gardens ever, and the buzz around the event, my phone is basically going dead because people are calling me about it. It's a very exciting time. The 8th year we've done it every year. It's gotten better, and so I'm very, very happy with it.
Awesome. How did you come up with the concept?
Well, it was actually our initial mayor, Shirley Gibson. She went to a jazz festival up the road, and she came back. She said, "We can do that here." And I wasn't even on the council then. I wasn't an elected official then. And I asked her, "Well, you know, what?" She said, "We can do it right there at the stadium." And she looked out over what was absolutely nothing in a parking lot and said we could do it right here. Wow. And you know, 8 years later, we've transformed a parking lot into a place where this weekend over 50,000 people will enjoy the event.
Wow, it's excellent.
Yeah.
So this has been going on for 8 years. What kind of impact economically has the festival had on the city?
Well, it generates revenue, especially more for local vendors, especially the vendors that come out and actually set up at Jazz in the Gardens. Okay. Because if you know anything about the festival, it's not just the music. You come and you pay for the concert, but the stuff you buy, the T-shirts, the food, the incredible food, the roasted corn with lemon pepper seasoning, and the roasted turkey legs, and the conch salad and the big pineapple, and the chicken fried rice, and the Philly cheesesteaks, and I mean you could really eat yourself into a coma at Jazz in the Gardens. But it's really an extraordinary time. But people coming out and marketing and selling their ideas, their food. It's really an opportunity for people to taste, enjoy, listen, and experience how we like to do things in Miami Gardens. 2014
Jazz in the Gardens. You missed this year. Make sure to be there next year. But one last thing, arts and economic development, what is your philosophy?
Well, I think that, look, any place you put art, whether it's, you know, even in the classroom, if you put art in the classroom, the kids who participate in art perform better academically. If you put art in the community, it revitalizes the community. And you can see that places in South Florida like South Beach, which, you know, when I went away to college at FAMU, South Beach was, you know, dilapidated houses and homeless people. When you started to actually come back, it was the art that started that revitalization. Right. And so I believe that you can use art in that way. Yes. And I'm a definite proponent of that.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure speaking
with you.
My pleasure.
Have a great weekend. Congratulations.
Hey, pray for me.
I will.
All right.
I will. For joining us.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
I have been familiar with your work since what 2003? 2002?
2002. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just about it. Yeah.
And your beautiful clothing. So you not only do clothes, but you do painting, all kinds of things.
Painting, sculptures, jewelry, boxes, handbags, you name it. Yeah, so can make it happen. Yeah.
So tell us about you. Where did you start? When did you start? When you were a child? Because that's been something that you've always wanted to do?
Actually, the story that I received from my family is that I've always been interested in painting and drawing. So as they considered, I was born with a paintbrush and a pencil, in my hands. So I was always, interested in just art. So that's what I've been doing. And my grandmother actually allowed me to follow, my desires, which is to be an artist. So I was always in magnet programs. Okay. And so I've painted cartoon characters, for example. I did realistic work. And this particular style came about when I moved to New York City. And I was amongst a very powerful group of people, of artists and musicians. And we were all just on the floor in my studio drawing, and Color Swarm came about. And that's when I also adopted the name Baye. And Baye in Swahili means strength within the soul. And from then on, it's just been going to the top. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Tell me, where did you go to school?
I went to school at Charles Drew Elementary, also Alapata Middle, and Design Architecture Senior High, which is known as DASH. I also went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn.
which is known for turning out some of the best designers.
Absolutely.
Which explains what we see here.
Yes.
So tell us about some of the work that you brought.
Actually, some of my pieces are from Italy, from my boutique. This particular piece here, which is handmade, it's a handmade bag.
Oh, beautiful.
Which also, of course, has my designs on it, and also in the back. It is versatile as far as the material goes. It's very textual. I also have T-shirts inside, which are T-shirts that, you know,
Yes.
Melissa and I are wearing. These are also hand-painted jewelry boxes. They're very unique, and they're extremely functional. Of course, you don't have to just put jewelry in them. You can put money or flowers, whatever you'd like. This is a sculpture that I crafted on my own, and it's something that is very, you know, functional for a woman, something that you can apply on the table and so forth. And this is a shoe sculpture that I have, that I created in South Carolina. I do move a lot. I love traveling. So this is the inspiration from South Carolina.
Okay.
And of course, the paintings that you see in the background, which were, of course, influenced by the Native American culture, the tribe, where you see the man and woman, and it just defines how powerful we were and we still are as natives. And this particular piece is very, very special to me. It provides a lot of motivation and it keeps me grounded. It's called Crown Me. Yeah,
Yes.
and I love it. I love it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So tell me about your design philosophy. You have a variety of different materials.
Mm-hmm.
What inspires you to choose the materials that you use?
I am in love with acrylic paint. I've always used acrylic paint as a youth. And I'll always use acrylic paint.
Okay.
It just does something to me.
Okay.
I love it. I love the way it smells. I love the way it moves. I love the way it applies on different materials. However, I also keep myself open to other different materials.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what inspires you? You have a particular style of work that says Baye.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that inspired you to use this? You mentioned that you started off in Brooklyn, and that's where the whole idea of color swarm started. Is this where the shapes came from, or did it just evolve in time? How did it
Well,
come about?
actually, I've always considered my people, when I say my people, just my culture. And our culture particularly love making, we love communication, we love dancing. And in my work, that's exactly what you see. The designs are interactive, they're very vibrant, they're bold, they're very attractive. And they're very similar to hieroglyphics, which is how we used to communicate, many, many years ago. And when you actually pay attention to the works or the designs, you can see and feel that there's some communication going on. And not only that, it's very spiritual. Some of the pieces have meanings, or some of the designs have meanings. For example, this particular one that's here, it's called the third eye, or the one-eye guy. That's one of my homeboys. They're my they're my babies. That basically describes, the strength within your soul. What you can see beyond what the two eyes have for you. And this particular one, which a lot of people confuse it with the guitar, which of course that can be that. It represents a man or a woman who's wearing a hat, like myself, or that has a turban on.
Okay.
And the other design, which is the logo here, represents, just a woman or a man that has long hair, or a child. I really leave it open to the person that's actually viewing, the designs themselves.
Okay.
So yeah, they're called color swarm designs in particular because they are colors that swarm, amongst whatever canvas that they're on, whether it's a bag or a heart sculpture or a jewelry box.
You keep referencing back to your culture and your nationality. Tell me how that type of pride, came to influence your work. Is that something that has always been there? Was that something that was birthed through time? Was it, a particular incident?
It's a little bit of both, particularly because I'm from Liberty City, which is considered a very interesting neighborhood in Miami. Let's put it like that. And I'm actually very proud of myself because, we are not expected to grow from the concrete. You know, we're not expected to become roses, or not expected to be intelligent, or know how to use the crafts that we were actually blessed with. And I give thanks to the universe and the Almighty that I was one of the roses that actually grew from the concrete. Yes. And that was extremely inspiring to me, and also knowing and seeing that I have this power, to become what I dream to be, outside of what people see within myself. So I just carried it on. I also thank, my grandmother for really pushing me into this art. She's like, just stay with it regardless of your surroundings. So I did that. And I'm the type of person that loves to travel. You know that. Yes. I'm always in, one location or the next. That also inspired me to be around such great people. It really did a lot to me. So, for example, my trip to Italy or my trip to New York, actually living in Italy and actually embracing the culture and actually seeing them, how they embraced me and how they loved me and they believed in what I had. I was considered a genius over there. That's what they call, well, that's what I am. But, that's what they call me, a genius. My boutique was considered the sun within the city. So I actually provided something for them, and just, throughout my life experience, I see that I also have more power than I even expected. I have something that I can provide to the people, and the people represents, Asians or just people all around the world, no one in particular, and that's what my art represents.
Fantastic. And this is a true lifestyle brand, and part of, what you just mentioned is that for us to propel different artists into that limelight, we need to support.
Right.
So we're going to definitely support you in a complete lifestyle brand for the home, for the office, for your life, for your family. How can we reach you if we want to purchase any of your designs, any of your clothing?
Okay. Currently, you can reach me at Baye Designs at yahoo.com. Yeah. Excellent. Or you can also, of course, link Facebook, Baye L, on Facebook. You can link me there as well.
Excellent. Such a pleasure, my dear.
Thank you so much.
I
really appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. Welcome to Sugarcane Mag TV. It's a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
So what's going on with you guys? What do you have coming up?
We got a lot. Actually, we have a radio show that we are currently doing on second and fourth Sundays. Well, every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday. And we have a open mic stage that's called Rip Stage every second and fourth Sunday. So we got a lot of things going on.
Oh, excellent. So tell me about your poetry night. You guys have a spot here in the city of Miami. Tell me about it.
Yes, it's actually located at the stage, which is 170 Northeast 38th Street. The stage is basically a place where artists, the way the building is set up is set for performance to be seen. So it's a performance stage. So you're actually getting what you're worth, your money's worth, instead of like going out to a venue and they got this rinky-dink stage or just made stage. So it's actually catered to the artist. But it's a night that if you're into real poetry, and I don't mean to use the word real like that, but poetry has been watered down lately, but it's not there, because we have people we've never heard before that come out there instead of your regulars, and that means a lot. That means a lot of people are pretty interested in poetry, or either that they like us a lot. So
I can see where people will be really comfortable with you guys. You have such a great personality. I can see where artists will feel comfortable being on the stage with you.
Yeah, no, by all means. Again, just like J.S. Cole's mentioned, our audience is very diverse. The good thing about it is every Sunday that you attend, you won't get the same poet. So to have our audience come night in and night out, knowing that it'll be somebody different there, is a big deal, and it actually shows us how comfortable they are with us. So that's something we try to strive for, is to please the audience and to make sure that the poets and the singers are comfortable as well.
Excellent. So how long have you been doing poetry?
I'm different. This is the old guy here. He's a veteran in the game.
I think 5 years for me.
5 years.
5 years. But I've been writing way before then, but just to actually come out and perform, it's been about 5 years. I actually started at the Literary Cafe. You know, rest in peace, Will, the real one.
Absolutely.
The Will was actually the one that both of us that gave us that motivation to actually go on the stage, and especially for me, seeing a brother from, you know, my stomping grounds, you know, with goals in his mouth and everything, speaking of how he felt. I felt like, okay, you know, it's all right now. I can speak, you know, what I felt, and I'm glad that he gave us a platform to come out and be like that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, for me, it was it's been about a little over 4 years.
Okay.
And again, I was homegrown from the Literary Cafe as well.
Okay.
But for me, Will symbolized something totally different. To me, I looked at him as someone who just had a certain type of fight in him. Never caring about what anyone said about him, didn't let his profile status hinder him from wanting to embark on anything else. So, you know, I looked at him as someone who just was in tune with wanting to accomplish so much. And, you know, that inspired me to want to get into poetry a little bit more.
And you know what? And I'm going to kind of deviate for a second just to talk about Will, because we have an international audience, so there may be some folks who haven't heard of him, but on a national scale here in the United States, people knew him from all over.
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about Will the Real One. That's one of the spots that I remember going to. I don't know how, I didn't mention it to you, Literary Cafe. So I remember that spot in North Miami. I remember when he opened it, and his death, I thought it was a joke when I saw that he passed. So please tell us a little bit more about it.
Let me start first, because, you know, it's a little bit more personal for GS Coles. I became aware of who Will was, I would say maybe about 2.5 years prior to him passing. So, you know, my favorite story and my favorite memory of him was I never thought he knew who I was. You know, I was just amateur poet who just wanted to do poetry. And I ended up at his night one day, and I did a poem. And he pulled me to the side, and he said, you know what, that was okay, but I want you to come back and do the exact same poem, because what I ended up doing was reading the poem through my phone. He said, I want you to memorize it. Needless to say, I stayed away for about 4 months. I was just nervous. I was like, I can't do this. This is not for me. When I came back 4 months later, he said, where have you been? And I was like, wow, this guy, like, he really knows me. And it's just been, you know, like karma ever since. Every time, although he's not here, but every time I think of that poem, I feel as though Will's right behind me. So that's what he, you know, that's one of the many things he did for me.
For me, the situation with Will, it's beyond poetry. It started with poetry, but I remember just my second time performing on the stage, and then the following week I came because I just fell in love with it. I kept coming back. So the third week I came back, and they had a birthday celebration for Joseph Coates, which is DJ Midway. He was their house DJ. It was his birthday, and you know, Will called all his poetry family up there, the ones that helped, you know, run the Literary Cafe. And then he called my name, and I was like, what's he calling me for? Like, for real? And he called my name, and he was like, and in his exact same words, he was like, yo, what you doing? Get your ass up here. And I was like, oh, okay. And then from that point on, it was just like I became a fixture in there from setting up to bringing ice. But then outside of that, you know, if I had issues or anything, I could come to Will about it, because I knew who he was from his days of in the streets and everything. So I know family members that know of him. I know cousins that, you know, were a part of his life. So when we started connecting all that, then our bond became more and more. And I remember the night that he passed, when I was at work, and I got a phone call from a North Miami police officer that I went to school with, and she was like, did you hear someone killed your brother? And I was like, huh? And she was like, yeah, someone, you know, shot Will. And I just left the job. I didn't notify nobody. I didn't care to notify anybody who was there. And needless to say, that night was my night when I finally said, I'm not for to work for nobody no more. I'm for to do poetry. And from that night, seeing that scene, North Miami, the street 125th was lit up with just all walks of poets, people. People were coming from West Palm, everywhere, just to come out there, because they couldn't believe it. It was like we had just lost the most monumental person in the poetry world. That for us, whether it was just national, he was international to us. So we took a hit, and it's so crazy because me and Will talk about it. Serious talk about it sometimes. We watch how all these poetry venues come out and they leave next week. They're out 2 weeks and they're gone, and all these different poets feel like they can say this and they can say that, and then you got different poets using Will's lines and everything, and not even paying homage to of saying the line. They're just saying the line like they did it themselves, and we watched all this and we was like, yo, if Will was alive, none of this would be going on. None of this, because he was respected. That his voice, not even his voice, his presence alone would stop a lot of things.
Very intimidating, but very, very intimidating, but at the same time, very respected.
Right. Yes. He would always tell us, anything that we do, be explosive, but yet humble.
So the lessons that you learned from working with him, how have you incorporated that into what you do now? Because like you mentioned, you've taken off from a regular 9 to 5 to make this, what you do to make a living. And there are a lot of artists who would love to do that, but for whatever reason don't think that they can. So what have you taken that you learned from him to get to you where you are right now?
Will had a company, and it was called Hustle Man. And that's what you have to do. You have to hustle. You have to grind. You have to, if you're going to set your mind to say, look, I'm not going to do this, it's going to be some bumps and bruises, and it's going to be some struggles. But if you can't overcome that adversity, then this is not for you. And there are times when you be like, God, I really wish I had this. But then you have to, what you have to do, you just can't base it on being a poet. You have to say, okay, I'm going to be a poet, but I'm going to graphic design these T-shirts. I'm going to write this book. I'm going to get my name known over here, there. You have to find another hustle. You just can't leave it to poetry, because if you're not popping poetry-wise, or you're not that person in poetry, no one's going to pay no attention to you. No one's going to support you.
Right.
And I'm glad that to be honest, I'm glad in a way Will's death brought us together.
I think for me, what I took from Will and what allowed me to be so forthgoing with and passionate about what we do is because Will just had this attitude about him where he said, look, if you want to come with me, come, but if you don't come, I'm going anyway. So that's what I took from him, and that's where I inherited wanting to be not just successful in the poetry, but also wanting to be here for a long time. Like G.S. Cole's mentioned, a lot of people look at poetry or anything that they do as a financial come up. But when you do it from the heart and you do it just pure passion, I think you have the sum of wanting to be here for a long time. So, I think his grind and his mentality on I'm going to go with you or without you is something that I always carry with me.
So for people who are out there who want to get into poetry or have their own spot, one of the things you mentioned, the lessons that you learned from him, what else do they need to have in their toolbox to help them put together a successful business? Because like you mentioned, there's so many spots that, pop up here today and they're not there tomorrow.
Right.
What do they need to make something long lasting?
I think the formula to everything is you have to be passionate about poetry. There's a difference between a poet and poetry lovers. You may be a fan of poetry, but don't know the true essence of poetry. So, I would start by doing a little bit of research, seeing what poetry embodies. Some people tend to look at poetry as a Love Jones type of thing. The movie, you have your candles, finger snapping. Yeah. We don't even have that at our spot, but it's just the way people, if you see a movie and this is what the media says is poetry, then that's what you're going to use as a criteria to try to establish something. But I would truly say, love it and do some research before going forth and trying to open up a spot.
Okay. Another thing you have to be humble. Okay. You have to remain humble in it, and if you're going in it as a business aspect, and you're just I'm in it for the money, then you need to know exactly what are you doing. You can't say I'm going in it for the money, but only like certain poets,
right?
Because then you're not in it for the money,
right?
You know what I'm saying? So if with us, it's like we have the business side of the poet. We are poets at heart. We love poetry, but we also are business. We have to conduct our business separate from our how we feel about poetry and who we like as poets. If I know I have a poet in West Palm Beach, and he may not, or she may not, and I'm not taking it, may be that hot poet, or may not be that poet that really moves the crowd, but they bring 50 to 60 people when they come. Business-wise, for me, that's a good thing.
That is fantastic. This is truly inspirational. Thank you so much for sitting here. What can we expect from you in the future? You have the radio show. Tell us where they can find it.
Yeah, you can go to www.swsui online. Our show is called The Groove Theory. And also you can find us on Facebook. I'm at Will Seri'us, and he's at
Germaine, F.Y.I, Coleman.
We also have a fan page where you can search Rip the Stage, and get any information you want about performing or being a part of Rip the Stage experience. So.
Future right now, for future we're working on a lot of stuff. We're working on I'm working on GS Cole clothing. I'm gonna give a Baye too. She's gonna help me out with that. GS Cole clothing. We're working on our CDs. We're working on our joint ventures together. We just want to be able to do something successful.
For me, for the future, is just to continue to be a father. There's no blueprint as to how to be a great father, so I'm learning as I go. And again, as he mentioned, we're working on our CDs. I'm actually doing a follow-up feature with NBC6. Back in December of last year, I did a segment when they aired the the Connecticut shooting. I did a poem on NBC6 dedicated to them and Trayvon Martin. So they're doing a follow-up story on us, and continue to just do what we can on the radio. So and hopefully we can get more features, and you can catch us, nationwide for the most part. So that's it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. You are a success. You're not working on being a success. You are a success already. Okay. It shows all over you.
Thank you.
You are there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in the future.
Sounds good.